Right, I'll get started. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the third week of Cybersecurity Month here at Every Cloud. And this will be our third webinar, in which we're going to cover the importance of discovering security misconfigurations within Office 365. Previously, we've done webinars based around cloud backup in week 1 and email phishing in week 2. Just a quick recap and introduction of who we are and what we do. I'm James Garrett. I'm a cloud security consultant here at Every Cloud, and I'm joined with me by Ross Manley, who's a sales engineer at Netscope. So everyone new to Every Cloud, we are a cloud security and communications business, and our purpose in life and why we exist is to help people work from anywhere securely. And we do this with a range of businesses, from BDO in the financial sector and the hospitality sector, with companies like Odeon Cinemas. And we also working with a couple of law firms and quite a few football clubs, which is really interesting. And the way that we help them is we allow them to protect and connect their employees and customers. We protect them through best of breed security solutions, ranging from cloud backup, cloud security, and phishing. And we connect them through unified communications and help them move their contact center to the cloud. And our core philosophy here at Every Cloud is building a people-led future fueled by technology and not the other way around. The people are the fuel, and the technology just enables them to do their jobs better. I'd like this webinar to be interactive. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll be happy to answer them. And with that, I'll pass over to Ross.
Thanks very much, James. Yeah, hopefully you can all see me and hear me okay. And I'll be taking us through identifying security misconfigurations in Microsoft 365. Some of the main points, defining security posture, misconfigurations, and then also talking a little bit about SaaS security posture management. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen and hopefully you can all see that. And yeah, we'll get started. So there we go. So yeah, as I say, what I'll do today is I'll just quickly go over the agenda. So we'll be going through a little bit about security posture, defining what it is, what does it actually mean, and whose responsibility is it within an organization, or which teams should take ownership of that. And then we'll look at misconfigurations within Microsoft 365 specifically. So just highlighting some examples in Microsoft 365 alone, let alone the many SaaS apps that organizations might also use in addition to the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And then finally, we'll look at some of the challenges, the benefits, and where it fits in your existing security tool set when we're talking around SaaS security posture management or Sspm if I fall into acronym mode. So defining security posture. So that's a reference. So security posture is a reference to your cybersecurity strength. So within your organization. So it includes an assessment of your ability to detect and respond to potential security threats. It also includes sort of an array of tools and strategies that are used to guard networks, devices, users, and data from all kinds of threats. So I'm sure everyone on the call knows what a security posture is and what we're looking to stop or detect, things like compromised and stolen credentials, things like data breaches, obviously data loss, network performance attacks, denial of service attacks, that sort of thing, malware, spyware, ransomware, absolutely massive in the news, which is strange, seeing lots of cyber information in the news and acronyms and sort of things we all know and live and breathe every day coming out on like Sky News and BBC is quite interesting more and more as well. So the more an organization is able to sort of minimize its risk surface, defend against threats, and adhere to security compliance standards, but also prove it, then the better its security posture. So hopefully, as we look through the sort of shared responsibility model of SaaS that everybody has signed up to when they sign these agreements, it's quite easy to get lost with who does what. Security posture and the configuration of all available security controls and adherence to best practice is definitely the organization's responsibility. So as I say, just to summarize there, it's your ability to detect, identify, remediate, the strength of your organization against those threats. So minimizing that risk surface, and that it's our responsibility. So people like Netscope, every cloud, yourselves, it's everyone's responsibility as a sort of a partnership to be able to do this in a programmatical way as well. So we'll touch on that as we go through the next few slides as well. So some, as expected, some unusually large text to try and drive the point home here. But the point we're trying to make is that initially, before we go into the massive text on the page, is that cloud strategies usually lag behind cloud use. So what we're saying here is it leaves most organizations with a large amount of unsanctioned or potentially even unrecognized software as a service use, so shadow IT, or the use of SaaS services on personal credit cards, but within the organization. It all sort of combines to create unnecessary risk and your exposure to that risk as well. So CIOs, security teams, CISOs, the people who want to defend against these sort of risks, they need to develop a comprehensive strategy. So as cloud is implemented, ideally before, have a way to continuously monitor the configuration of that SaaS, or looking back now, all the SaaS applications and services and Microsoft 365 services that you consume, the ability to sort of continuously monitor that security configuration. So you made a big investment in the likes of Microsoft 365. So let's make it even better by securing it, by upping the security posture and hardening and making sure we meet best practices as well, because there's a lot of organizations that'll be on this webinar today that I know from personal experience from working previous to where we are now, that are constantly audited, ISO 27002 audits, things like that. Somebody coming into your office and saying, what do you do about this? And you saying, well, we do that. And they say, show me. That's one of the biggest things that we'll hopefully go through later on when we're talking about misconfigurations and what we can do about it as well. So to the text on the screen. So Gartner, through 2025, 99% of cloud security failures will be the customer's fault. And this is covering both continuous security posture from an infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, but also SaaS security posture management from a software as a service point of view, so Microsoft 365. And this can be combated by implementing and enforcing policies on cloud ownership, on responsibility, on risk acceptance, to be able to sort of follow a lifestyle approach to governing this cloud and putting central management and monitoring of all of your Microsoft 365 investments and all of your other SaaS investments as well. So there's an inherent complexity to things like multi-cloud use, but what I really want to highlight within Microsoft 365 is multi-instance use. So every instance of Office 365 is unique. So what we've seen firsthand and to great effect is every cloud helping organizations do this. So cloud governance requires a sort of a programmatical approach and a repeatable approach as well. So being able to implement systems and policies and security posture that's not just one-off and a point in time for potentially an audit that's coming up or something like that, but being able to self-audit, continuously monitor, and as I said earlier, really sort of maximize that investment a little bit more as well. So it's really quite key to take that approach to it as well. And again, continuing alongside the agenda here, there is a lot of these misconfigurations in the use. So the first thing, using Microsoft 365 absolutely can be done securely. Enhancing the security posture of your investment is sort of a key thing for all organizations to do. And then, there'll be a certain amount of rolling eyes with the million other things that are key and absolutely needed and quickly must be done when we're talking about enterprise technology and SaaS. But with SaaS misconfigurations, they require effort and attention by your sort of enterprise technologists. You shouldn't assume that because it's available, that it's automatically enabled when we're talking about security and best practice. So we need to be able to monitor regularly and against best practices, things like CIS, Microsoft 365 Foundations as a benchmark, looking at GDPR within the context of Microsoft 365, HIPAA, NIST 853 or ISO 27001, 27002, I should say, or PCI DSS as well. So being able to take those standards within the context of Microsoft 365, within the context of your configuration, and then being able to look at it, because In the news, you'll see straight away the three big ones on the screen, but there are other ones. So the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency published a report sort of containing best practices designed to help organizations. And the report highlighted, a set of settings that were sort of misconfigured from the off. So this was focusing on migrating from Exchange on-premise to Exchange Online. And even in that process, disabled mailbox auditing was default set off prior to January 2019. So it makes it impossible to do things like root cause analysis of email related security breaches if it's still turned off. Disabled unified audit logs, again, the same issue, makes root cause analysis really difficult. Failing to use multi-factor authentication, you can see it right there, 78% of Microsoft 365 admins don't activate MFA. And when we enable Sspm alongside every cloud in these organizations, it's there straight away, MFA disabled. So it makes it possible for hackers to break into privileged accounts. So at least for your privileged accounts, we need to enable multi-factor authentication. Relying on sort of out-of-date email protocols is another one. It makes it impossible to configure multi-factor authentication, which goes up to the point I've just made about MFA, which goes right back up to I can't actually do the audit or the root cause analysis because it happened. MFA wasn't enabled. We were using out-of-date email protocols, which stopped us from doing that. And then another one that's quite interesting, things like password synchronization. So it makes it possible for hackers to impersonate administrators with using password synchronization. So there's all of these, and that's just focused on Exchange, right? So there's these specific 4 or 5 points that can be highlighted quite easily with continuous security assessment, with looking at your SaaS misconfigurations as well. So they're the ones to think about. The other one, Oauth consent phishing. So it's Oauth application, so it's known as consent phishing. It's very interesting for bad actors. So I think I have multiple times, and I guess everybody has on the call, given permission or granted permission to an application. So we're talking cloud to cloud here. An application that wants some kind of access into your Office 3 or Microsoft 365 environment. And once victims sort of click on those deceptive Oauth apps, they allow the installation of sort of any number of malicious activities. So Microsoft warns users to be on the lookout for deceptive Oauth apps and to sort of avoid those malicious attacks. But like many remote workers using Office 365 have experienced these sort of malicious or requests, or do you want to connect to such a service from wherever. So again, some very interesting things just to think about and highlight. So being able to highlight those misconfigured rules on an ongoing basis, again, adhering to those standards that we mentioned earlier. The really simple stuff, the MFA, they're getting that 78% down. Then also the quite juicy and relevant stuff like consent phishing as well, being able to highlight where you have cloud connections, auditing that on a regular basis, flagging it as a medium or a high or a critical severity regularly as you constantly assess your security posture. So as I say, there are solutions to this. There are challenges though. Again, if we highlight what SaaS security posture management is and move into some of those solutions a little bit over the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes, it's basically all the settings and rules that govern how your Microsoft 365 apps are supposed to be used in the context of your organization. So what should your organization enable from a security posture management point of view? What rules should be enabled? What standards should you adhere to? What, right down to that basic sort of settings we've just spoken about. So the concept is quite simple, is there's loads of good stuff within Microsoft 365 within your investment that you can switch on to make it more secure, to make it more fit for purpose, and to lower your risk profile. From a management standpoint, though, getting somebody to go in and do that or understand it or know about all of those policies is a bit more tricky. So this is what we said about taking a more program-based and repeatable approach to this, where you use a program manager, you use technology to look at your security posture, and that technology can centralize all of the Microsoft 365 apps and also other things, the Zooms, the Salesforce, the GitHubs of this world as well. So you can centralize all of that. And most importantly, you need to be able to output that to somewhere that you might be managing these alerts today. So you have a DLP incident, you might have a DLP tool that might raise an alert to the SOC team or to a SIEM or to a specific person. Same if you detect malware either at rest or in line or within the organization, within the SaaS app. However you may do that, you need to be able to get that alert to the right person. And it's exactly the same with SaaS security posture management. So enterprises are adopting a lot of SaaS apps. Each of them have their own sort of resources, dynamic configurations. Not everybody has a deep understanding of those SaaS apps. And if you don't, then mistakes are amplified and really quite easy to make. Sort of one slight misconfiguration or sort of unsafeguarded user permission is a possible attack vector. So just to summarize on that, so there's exponential growth, multiple instances, not just multiple types. So multiple instances of Microsoft 365 being used in the same organization. Different departments might have their own instances. Some may be very specific classification-based, highly classified instances. Some may contain patient data and some may not. So you need to understand how the instances should be configured. And you need to be able to centrally monitor both those instances in the same place. Otherwise, it's duplicating work, and that's going to be quite tricky. Then you bring in all the other SaaS apps that you may use. We're not going to focus on those today, but they all require specific configuration. So if you can centralize all of that SaaS use from instances and applications, then you're onto a really good start there. Having that adoption of different SaaS apps has sort of challenged security teams. So the business may onboard an application, not tell the security team, or they may well tell the security team. There may be a really good process, but it's a real challenge to maintain visibility over all of those configurations. So going into the Box admin console, going into the Zoom admin console, going into all the different Microsoft 365 consoles, it's all there. It's all can be configured securely, but it takes some doing, and it takes a bit of knowledge and centralization to do that. And it's sort of dynamic. So the only constant is that there are more apps coming online, more data, and more users are adding to that inventory. So we'll talk about it from a platform, a wider sort of security point of view in a moment, but more apps. So it's dynamic, and we need to be able to sort of respond to that. And so the way that we'll respond to that is using SaaS security posture management. So that's continuous visibility and monitoring of SaaS apps. So it's that expertise, that visibility, and that monitoring of your SaaS security posture. And as you keep moving workloads and sensitive data into SaaS apps, the risk of accidental exposure or overly permissive entitlements, oversharing, things like that as well, that can cause data leakage. It can cause non-compliance within your, let's say, GDPR or 27002, for example. And then there's the obvious threats like malware, which still remain significant challenges delivered via consent phishing or via some other misconfiguration. So what Sspm does, and I'll finally start using the acronym to, otherwise we'll be here all day. So Sspm, you can gain insight into the risks that are sort of associated with your software as a service. And then you can rapidly detect those misconfigurations, enforce compliance, and then protect against those things. So centralized visibility, number one, of your posture, looking into the settings, doing absolutely nothing else, just highlighting the settings and telling you what's enabled, what's disabled. The second one is governance. So where we can highlight the settings and we can say, look, there are all these different security policies that are enforced and some of these that aren't, we can then sort of map those against pre-built policies. So industry standards, CIS-ness, misconfigurations can be alerted on quickly, and then we can do something about it before they're sort of exploited. And the SSPM is tightly coupled with things like cloud access security brokers, inline secure web gateways as well, and DLP and malware threat to sort of plug the gap around configurations while still considering the actual data, the sharing, the threats that may be within that folder or within that infrastructure as well. So in summary, it'll help you avoid risky misconfigurations and activity. So give you the visibility, allow you to set policies, alert when those policies aren't being followed, and then guide you, literally go here, click this, enable that, and resolve those security risks, because you may not have Mr. Microsoft 365 or Mr. Azure sitting there ready for you to do that. It may be your job, and you may need some guidance to do that. And the results are better, safer version of your 365 implementation, which makes it a better investment and makes you more auditable and more secure as well. And finally, I'll just touch on where that sits within Netscope's cloud security profile. So Sspm fits into our security profile. We've obviously got continuous security posture management on the infrastructure as a service side. We have data at rest with a market-leading CASB, inline controls with the highest rated customer satisfaction next-gen secure web gateway. And we can look at data and rest again from the CASB point of view within 365, within Box, within wherever you may sanction data to be held. So if we're looking at your data at rest and we're looking at your posture management within IaaS and we're looking at your data at rest within IaaS and we're controlling the good, the bad, and the malware inline and via next-gen secure gateway, then adding security posture management to this, the settings and rules that govern those SaaS apps like Microsoft 365 is a really sort of key part to this. So hopefully, in that sort of short overview, we've looked at defining the security posture. We've looked at the misconfigurations in Microsoft 365 that are in the news and that you should be watching out for, and some of the easy ones to resolve. And then we've touched a little bit on SaaS security posture management, how that can help, and the capabilities of that. So I'll leave the capabilities of SaaS security posture management on the screen there. And then it's okay with you, James. I'll hand back and see if there's any questions or anything we can cover off as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Ross. Really informative. Did anyone have any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat. You can do them anonymously as well if you don't want to let anyone know who you are. Okay, I'll take that as everyone's fine. We will be in touch. I will send you a copy of the webinar via email, a link to it. And next week's webinar is all around passwordless and the future of passwords. So look out for the link for that. Again, thank you, Ross, and the team at Netscope, and thank you all for attending.